Hello everyone, hope everyone is doing great. I'm here today to talk about an amazing book that I just read and I am very impressed. It is called The Madness of Lord Ian Mackenzie by the author Jennifer Ashley. This is my first book by Jennifer Ashley and let me tell you, I am hooked. As soon as I finished The Madness of Lord Ian Mackenzie, I immediately started the second book in the series. But I won't get there today. Let's talk about the first book first. We have a little bit of background story, and let me tell you right away, I'm going to try not to give away too many spoilers with this book because it's just so good. I believe you need to experience it firsthand, but I will give you some information as well as my personal feedback and what I thought about the book. So we have four brothers, Mackenzie brothers. They are of course Scottish. Let me give you their names from the oldest to the youngest. So we have Hart, we have Cameron, we have Mac, and we have Ian. Ian is the youngest. He has a 10-year difference between him and the oldest, who's Hart. Hart is also the Duke, one of the most influential dukes in the country. Now, the interesting thing about this book is Ian has autism spectrum disorder, and of course during Ian's time they don't know exactly what it is. That's why the book is called The Madness of Lord Ian Mackenzie. He is actually referred to as the Mad Mackenzie, or at least that's what others refer to him as. By the way, I forgot to mention, kind of important, the book is taking place towards the end of the 19th century. So we are talking 1880s. Yeah, I believe it's 1881 or 1880 when the book takes place. So trains are already a thing, but autism is not a thing yet. To people, Ian is basically mad. Now, how do we know it's autism that he has? Well, some symptoms that he shows is, first of all, he's not able to make eye contact with others. It's evident all throughout the book. He is not able to read people's emotions from their face. He's just not able to tell what they're feeling. He's really bad with emotions and feelings. He is not doing well in crowds. He always tries to run away from crowds. And when there is a group of people, he's not able to keep up with the conversation. He gets lost. He's not able to follow the conversation. He's good with the conversation if it's one-on-one or a couple of people. If it's a group conversation, he's lost. He doesn't understand some common social cues, and he had to be taught them. For example, his brothers taught him that when you are at a musical, when the performance ends, you have to applaud. He does not understand why, but he does that. He learned that. He's just basically copying what others are doing. He is not able to tell a lie. He only tells the truth. He's very straightforward. He says things exactly as they are. And he's not able to understand any hints. He has to be spoken to in a very straightforward manner. People have to tell him things as they are. He's just going to take things as they are, and he often doesn't understand things when people are talking in some abstract terms. So he has to be very straightforward. Now, with his condition, he's also able to remember every word of every conversation he has ever had, which his brother, the Duke, uses to his advantage. The Duke, Hart, takes Ian to various political meetings, and Ian is able to remember conversation word to word and then recall it later to Hart. Ian also remembers every book he's ever read. He takes like a day to finish the whole book and he will remember everything. He is not able to read music sheets, but if he hears a piece of music once, he's able to reproduce it on the piano. But he claims that he's not able to give the music soul or any emotions. He's just able to replicate it. So he's very special. He's very different. Now, his love interest is, her name is Beth. I don't even remember her last name. She's actually a widow of 9 years. She married pretty young. She married for love. She was only married for a year before her husband passed away. She was, of course, devastated. She loved him. And then she found a job. She's not from a rich family. She found a job as a basically caretaker of a rich older lady. And then the lady died pretty recently, and gave Beth everything she owned, her house and all her money, which I believe was £100,000, which is quite a lot of money, especially in that time. So Beth is now an heiress. She's rich, and she decided to get married. Now, when Ian finds out about Beth, it's because his acquaintance tell him that, hey, there's this lady I'm marrying. So Ian decides to look into her because he thinks that man who's gonna marry her is not a good man. So he wants to do a research on Beth and then decide if he should save her from the marriage or not. And then he meets her by accident, and he decides, that's the key, he decides he wants her for himself. And he tells her not to marry that man. He tells her the truth about him, the kind of things he does, that man who she was gonna marry. And he's like, well, you should marry me instead. And Beth is, of course, quite surprised because this is their very first meeting. And when she asks him, why should I marry you? Or why would you want to marry me? Ian, he's straightforward. He tells her, well, I want to bed you. That's his reasoning, very simple. And then Beth, logically, she's like, well, you do realize that after you have bedded me, I will still be your wife. And Ian's logical response is like, well, yeah, I want to bed you more than once. So to him, it makes perfect sense. He sees Beth, he realizes he wants her. She's a respectable lady, so in order to bed her, he has to marry her. So he offers marriage. Pretty simple. He's never offered marriage before, but he wants to offer it to Beth. Anyways, Beth refuses, and she actually she cancels her wedding with the other guy who she was betrothed to. She goes to Paris. Ian follows her. Things happen. I don't want to spoil the story. What is so interesting about the story, what really got my attention, what pretty much captivated me from the start and held me glued to the book until the very finish? Well, it's really interesting to see inside Ian's mind, how he's functioning, how he's starting to love Beth, and he doesn't think he's capable of love. He has never felt love before. And it's also interesting how the society views him. They view him as Mad Mackenzie. And then it's interesting how Beth views her, because Beth is also falling in love with Ian, but Ian has told her from the start that, hey, I'm not capable of love. So she's kind of not really trying to fight her feelings, but she's concerned about being heartbroken. It's interesting to see how each of them is falling in love with each other, how they're starting to realize their feelings, the way they treat each other, the way Beth sees Ian beyond his condition, beyond his peculiarities. She sees him and she loves him. And it's a very beautiful story. The story has a lot of flashbacks to the past. And we learn that Ian, when he was a child, his father put him into an asylum for something that Ian witnessed. And in the asylum, the doctors conducted experiments on him, trying to cure him of his condition. The doctors used him as a guinea pig. They brought him on the stage to show to others. So Ian has quite a lot of trauma from that, and he's also scared of being locked back in the asylum again. Also, the book gives some background information for the other three brothers, and it turns out that all Mackenzies are interesting characters. They all have some dark history. the book doesn't get too much into the other brother's history. It gives us just a little bit of information, just enough to get you hooked. That's how I got hooked. As I mentioned before, I started reading the second book in the series right after I finished the first one because I was so invested into the Mackenzie's families and I wanted to learn more. I wanted to learn what's going to happen with Ian's brothers. Now, this book is not just a love story. There's actually some detective work at play. There's so much happening in the book. Well, there were two murders, and part of the book has to do with solving the murders. What's interesting about this theme in the book is that, as we learn later on in the book, and sorry, this is a bit of a spoiler, but what we learn is that Ian, for 5 years, believes that his older brother Hart, the Duke, committed the murder, while Hart, for this 5 years, believes that it was Ian who committed the murder. They never talk about it, but each one of them tries to protect the other one in their own way. So that's quite interesting. The murder, by the way, again spoiler, neither of the brothers was the person who committed the murder. And then there was another murder 5 years later, which happened when the plot of the book is already taking place. Again, Beth is determined to solve the murder, the mystery. She's worried about Ian. Ian is trying to protect Beth and keep her away from everything. And then there's also another character who's basically an inspector, a detective, who hates the Mackenzies. And pretty much from the start of the book, Beth figures out that the inspector has some personal issues with the Mackenzies. She cannot figure out what it is exactly, but she can tell that he is very hateful towards them. And at the end of the book, we actually find out why, and it's such an unexpected turn of events. It was phenomenal. Honestly, the whole book is full of unexpected turns and twists, and it kept me glued from start to finish. I thoroughly enjoyed the book. I highly recommend it. Again, the book has a few different themes. We have Ian's mental condition. I have not read a historical fiction romance where the main character had autism disorder, so that was quite interesting. We have that love story, of course, which is one of the central themes. We have murder, we have that mystery suspense that the characters are trying to solve. And then we have all those kind of side stories related to the Mackenzie family that also take place. We get to see the background into the family, and it's so very interesting. In particular, the book talks about the other brother, Mac. He is just 3 years older than Ian, and the book talks about his history in love. The second book is about Mac, and it's super interesting. Now let's talk about the steam level in the book. The book is quite steamy. The book is very steamy. It's interesting to see it both from Ian's perspective and also from Beth's perspective. The book has a lot of spicy scenes. They are very well written. No complaints in that regard. Now, as I mentioned, this is my first book by Jennifer Ashley. I am very impressed. I enjoyed her writing style. She's very good at creating complex, deep characters. She's very good at creating a good, complex plot. The story is very interesting, very captivating. I enjoyed the book. I highly recommend it. I really think that if you read this book, you will be really likely to read on to the next book in the series, because the whole series is very, very interesting. For my personal rating, I gave this book a 12 out of 10. I'm just not able to give a book less than 10 when it makes me feel things, when it makes me feel emotions, when it makes me feel so much. I have to go above 10. As you guys might have noticed, I am very easy to impress, very easy to please, and I love my historical romance. This book in particular has impressed me a lot because of a very interesting character who has autism spectrum disorder. This book is also not just a typical historical romance. There is a crime happening and they're trying to solve it, so that's also quite interesting. If you have read this book, let me know what you thought about it. Let's talk about the characters, let's talk about Beth, let's talk about Ian, let's talk about the Mackenzie family. If you have read the whole series, please let me know who your favorite Mackenzie brother is. For me, I am currently torn between Mac and Cameron, but I have not read Cam's book just yet. I am just about to finish Mac's book, and Mac is quite an attractive man from what I have read about him. Let me know who your favorite is. If you want me to read a particular book and do a video on it, let me know which book. I am always looking for more books. Thank you so much for watching. If you love historical romance, make sure to subscribe and let's talk about books. I'm looking for more friends who I can talk about historical romance, so let's discuss. Thank you so much for watching. Please like my video and have a wonderful day.